Today, we're diving into something that feels completely backwards. A type of psychological manipulation that doesn't go after your weaknesses or your insecurities. Nope, it targets the very best parts of you. Your kindness, your loyalty, that unwavering hope you have. We're gonna break down not just what this is, but exactly how your greatest strengths get turned into weapons against you.
The attack wasn't aimed at your weakness. It was aimed at your biggest strength, your loyalty, your kindness, or your hope. Why? This is the dark psychological paradox of narcissistic hooks, a tactic that weaponizes your virtue against you. Let's just let that sink in for a second. This idea, it's everything. It completely flips the script on what we think we need to protect. We spend our lives being told, guard your insecurities, hide your flaws, but this tactic just waltzes right past those defenses. It grabs the qualities you're most proud of and turns them into levers to control you. It is incredibly disorienting for sure, but getting your head around this paradox is the absolute first step, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack right now.
So let's start right there with this core paradox. Why on earth would a manipulator be attracted to your best qualities only to attack them? It seems totally illogical. Well, it all boils down to one word: efficiency. A narcissist is always on the hunt for something called narcissistic supply. Just think of it as emotional fuel. It could be praise, validation, or even the drama from a huge fight. Any big emotional reaction will do, really. And your strengths, your empathy, your loyalty, your optimism, they are the most powerful, predictable, and consistent sources of that fuel. A weakness is unreliable, right? It's hit or miss. But your deep-seated kindness, that's an oil well they can tap into anytime they want. So get this, they're not with you despite your strengths. They are with you because of them, because they are so incredibly easy to exploit. And that leads us directly to the core method here, what the source material for this explainer calls the four-letter trick. This is so important because it pulls back the curtain. It shows you that this isn't just random, chaotic cruelty. No way. It's a specific, observable pattern. And once you can name something, once you understand its blueprint, you stop being a confused player in the game and you become a clear-eyed observer. And that is the first step to disarming it. So let's define the central piece of this entire trick. So, narcissistic hooks. This isn't some vague, poetic term. It's a clinical one. It's a specific emotional trigger point that a manipulator finds and learns how to press. Think of it like a psychological pressure point. They poke and prod, usually very subtly at first, until they find that button that gives them a guaranteed reaction, every single time. The goal is always twofold. One, maintain control of a situation, and two, keep that emotional fuel we just talked about, that supply, flowing continuously. So how are these hooks categorized? Well, the good news, if you can call it that, is that it's not some endless, complicated list of tactics. The entire trick is built around just 4 of the most powerful and fundamental human emotions. These 4 are the ones that are so primal, so strong, they can completely override our logic and reason. They are the perfect weapons. Let's look at the first one. The first hook is hope. This goes right after your optimism, your belief that things can get better, your capacity for forgiveness. If you're a hopeful person, you're willing to endure a lot of pain in the present for the promise of a better future. A manipulator exploits this with a tactic called future faking. They are constantly dangling the carrot of change, that perfect relationship that's just around the corner. Oh, things will be amazing once I get this promotion, or once we move, I'll finally be happy. Your hope becomes the very anchor that chains you to a painful present, always waiting for a beautiful future that is strategically designed to never, ever arrive. The second hook is guilt. This is aimed squarely at people with a strong conscience and a deep sense of responsibility. If you're someone who naturally feels responsible for the emotional state of the people around you, you are a prime target for this. The manipulator basically hands over all of their emotional well-being to you and says, "Here, this is your job now. Your happiness, your stability, your moods, it's all on you." And just like that, your own empathy is weaponized to make you feel like you're always at fault, always indebted, always scrambling to manage their feelings. The third hook is fear. This one targets your loyalty, your desire for stability,
the fear of being abandoned, of conflict, of being alone. It's an incredibly powerful tool. They create a state of constant instability, often using what's known as intermittent reinforcement, those unpredictable, crazy-making cycles of affection and anger, praise and criticism. It creates this powerful, almost addictive craving for the good times and an intense fear of triggering the bad times. You end up walking on eggshells, doing whatever it takes to avoid that core fear.
And the final hook is shame. This one is particularly nasty because it targets your integrity, your desire to be seen as a good, worthy person. See, there's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is the feeling that you did something wrong. Shame is that intensely painful feeling that you are something wrong, that you are fundamentally flawed. Manipulators use projection and blame shifting to trigger this, making you believe that you are the root of every single problem. And to escape that horrible feeling, you'll work tirelessly to prove your goodness, which is, of course, exactly what they want.
And this chart just lays it all out, crystal clear. It connects the dots perfectly. Your hopefulness and optimism, targeted by the hope hook, using future faking. Your empathy and responsibility, targeted by the guilt hook. Maybe they play the victim or keep score. Your loyalty and need for stability, targeted by the fear hook, powered by that hot and cold intermittent reinforcement. And finally, your conscientiousness and integrity, targeted by the shame hook, through projection. The point is, there is a direct mechanical line from your best quality to the specific tactic used against you. It is not random.
So now that we've identified the hooks, we need to understand the mechanism. How are they actually set? What can feel like a chaotic storm of manipulation actually follows a very deliberate three-stage process. This isn't personal, it's mechanical.
Okay, here's the playbook. Step 1 is vulnerability mapping. In the beginning, the narcissist is like a detective. They're observing you, listening, learning what makes you tick. Are you driven by hope? Is guilt your primary motivator? They are mapping your emotional assets to find the most effective hook. Step 2 is hook setting and activation. Once they've found your primary hook, let's say it's guilt, they don't use a scattershot approach. They tailor the manipulation specifically to that trigger. And then comes step 3, the payoff for them, compulsion and supply. When that hook is set, you feel this overwhelming internal drive to act, to apologize, to fix things, to try harder. That frantic, anxious, emotional energy you expend is the supply. Your powerful reaction proves to them that their trick is working perfectly.
But why is this so brutally effective? What's the psychological engine that powers this dynamic for both the person doing it and the person it's being done to? Well, it all comes down to a fundamental conflict in motivation. And this slide lays it out. On one side, the manipulator's drive is all about efficiency. They want predictability and effortless supply. Why get into a complex, draining argument when you can just press the guilt button and get a pre-programmed high-energy response? But on the other side, the target's drive is completely different. It's about moral consistency. You see yourself as a good, kind, responsible person. So when a hook gets activated, it creates this intense internal conflict with that self-image. You feel compelled to act in a way that proves you're still a good person, even if it's at your own expense. And it's this very drive for moral consistency that makes the whole system work. And this is the key to how it feels on the inside. That terrible, sinking feeling of being hooked isn't just about outside pressure. It's the acute discomfort of feeling like you are about to violate your own core values. If someone triggers your guilt, the compulsion to fix it comes from your own need to see yourself as a responsible person. The manipulator just creates a scenario that forces you to choose between your own well-being and your moral self-image. And for many of us, protecting that self-image wins every time, at great personal cost. Understanding the mechanism is absolutely critical, but it's only half the battle. So let's move from analysis to action. How do you defend against something that targets your own virtues? The answer lies in developing a conscious, no-hook policy. This three-step strategy is your toolkit for getting your internal peace back. Step 1 requires some radical self-honesty. Identify your four-letter hook. Which one is it for you? Hope, guilt, fear, shame? You have to know your primary vulnerability to protect it. Step 2 is to assert a no-hook policy in the moment. This means when you feel that familiar pull, you pause and you name it. This is a guilt hook. That simple act creates a critical space between the trigger and your usual reaction. In that space lies your freedom. And step 3, which is the long-term work, is to internalize the opposite virtue.
If you're hooked by guilt, the antidote is self-compassion. If it's shame, it's self-worth. You actively cultivate the internal resource that heals the vulnerability.
And this is what that policy sounds like in your own mind. These aren't necessarily things you say out loud. They are internal boundaries. When you feel that pang of guilt, your new internal monologue is, I feel the pull of guilt, but I'm not responsible for their feelings. When you feel that frantic fear, it's, I recognize this is activating my fear, but I will not text them. This isn't about becoming cold or uncaring. It's about becoming precise. It's a skill, like building a muscle. It feels hard at first, but with practice, you take back control of your own internal responses.
Ultimately, all of this knowledge, the paradox, the hooks, the mechanism, the defense, it's all about one thing: breaking the trick. It's about dismantling this entire machine so you can reclaim your own internal peace and your own agency.
And if you take only one single thing away from this whole explainer, please let it be this. This is the most important mental shift you can make. The hook was never set in a flaw. It was never about something being wrong with you. It was set in the very nature of your goodness, the inherent soft spot that comes with being a hopeful, a responsible, a loyal human being. The problem was never your virtue. The problem was only that it was exploited.
So let's recap the path. First, you have to remember that narcissistic hooks are the four-letter trick that targets your greatest assets. Then, you recognize the pattern. You see how vulnerability mapping allows them to activate your hope, guilt, fear, or shame, which is what forces you to comply. But once you can see that pattern, you can break the loop. By identifying your hook and by choosing self-compassion over that old, familiar feeling of compulsion, you dismantle the trick. And you finally assert your right to internal peace. And that leaves us with this final empowering thought. Your kindness, your hope, your loyalty, these are not liabilities. They are your greatest assets. They are a form of wealth. The only question that remains is not whether you should have them, but where you choose to invest them.